Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet, a YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8, and reading Grimm's fairy tales. We read 4 stories. We're going to read The Frog King, King Thrushbeard, Tomthumb, and the Robber Bridegroom. The Frog King. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well, when the day was very warm. The king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was bored, she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it. This ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding it up for, but onto the ground beyond and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished. And the well was deep, so deep, that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so, that even a stone would show pity." She looked round to side from whence the voice came, and saw a frog, stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it thou?" said she. "I am weeping for my golden ball which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet, and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee, but what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything up again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she, "my clothes, my pearls and jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown, but if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat off thy golden plate, and drink of thy little cup, and sleep in thy little bed. If thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below, and bring thee thy golden ball up again." "Oh yes," said she, "I promise thee all thou wishest, if thou wilt but bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog. "Take me with thee. I can't run as thou canst." But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate. Something came creeping, splish splash, up the marble staircase. And when it had gotten to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door to, in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away?" "Ah, no," replied she, "it is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does a frog want with thee?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday I was in the forest, sitting by the well, playing. My golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried, so the frog brought it out again for me, and because he insisted on it, I promised him he should be my companion. But I never thought he would be able to come out of his water. And now he is outside there, and wants to come to me." In the meantime it knocked a second time, and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Dost thou not know what thou saidst to me? Yesterday, by the cool waters of the fountain, Princess, youngest princess, opened the door for me. Then said the king, That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in. This is kind of weird. She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her, step by step, to her chair. There he sat and cried, Lift me up beside thee. She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was at once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, Now push thy little golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together. She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room, and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep. The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean bed. But the king grew angry and said, He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee. I feel like there's other things going on, like just subtext. Just it's kind of odd. She took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him into the corner. But when she was in the bed, he crept to her and said, I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father. This is weird. Then she was terribly angry and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. Now wilt thou be quiet, odious frogs? He's dead now. His organs would be outside his body. He would be dead. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son, with beautiful, kind eyes. What is the moral of these stories? Where was I? He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into the kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and the next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 we have a subtitle here by the picture. It's actually a picture you guys can see right here. This is the princess and the frog. She took hold of the frog with 2 fingers and carried him upstairs and put him in a corner. Horses which had been white ostrich feathers on their head. Okay, again, what country is this taking place in? What country did this originate in? Also, ostriches? Like, I assume England, but do England... Hell, how many ostriches are actually in Europe? Then I guess past, I mean, there's parts of the Middle East that used to have lions and all sorts of more varieties of animals. So, used to be more species of different animals, too. Or animals that lived in some regions that... Okay, I'm getting distracted. Anyway, I'm just saying, ostriches? In England? Because I assume most of this is supposed to be... What country? I really should look that up somewhere. Were harnessed with golden chains, and behind stood the king's servant, Faithful Henry. Okay? Faithful Henry, it's part of his name, I guess. Had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burst with... You mean like around his chest, or were you like... He actually put metal inside of his chest? Like, it's not like you guys had proper antiseptic back then. Or antibiotics. Stop questioning the medical realism of a fairy tale. We just had a person change from a frog into a person. Well, technically from person to frog to person. Just saying. It's not meant to be realistic. I'm just saying. What do you mean iron bands around the heart? What? That sounds painful. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in, and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned round and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is the band from my heart." Dude. So there's just like blood spurting out of your chest? Which was put there in great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well. You couldn't get him out of the well? You specifically knew he was... Again and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking. But it was another of the bands we were springing from the heart of faithful Henry, because his master was set free and was... Again, we probably shouldn't be questioning the medical realism or the ethics. Also... this is a very short story, and there are so many there are several aspects to this story. I'm like, at the same time, the picture's really cool. Look how well the staircase is made. There's a lot of attention to detail in the drawings. It was probably really pain to wash long hair like that in the past. I mean, you didn't really have a shower or actual proper shampoo. It's like, what did you really wash with? Couldn't be anything good. Also, what's with the chandelier? It's like, is it made with glass? And it's just candles? Because, this is before electricity existed. There's so many questions that it's like... And here's the thing, I thought the other book had questionable stories, like Bluebeard and the Jew in the Bush. Like, who wrote these stories? Bluebeard is literally Adventure Time's Ice King. But, Hannibal Lecter. And it's like, why? What's the moral of the lesson? It's kind of like, is there a moral to Dragon Ball Z? Not really, it's just that it's really awesome. Feel free to write in the comments what's the moral of the lesson of Dragon Ball Z. Or any anime you like. Because I like anime. Okay, next story. King Thrushbeard. A king had a daughter who was beautiful beyond all measure. That's how the previous story started. But so proud and haughty withal that no suitor was good enough for her. She sent away one after another and ridiculed them all. Once the king made a great feast and invited thereto from far and near all the young men likely to marry. They were all marshalled in a row according to their rank and standing. First came the kings, then the grand dukes, then the princes, the earls, the barons, and the gentry. Then the king's daughter was led through the ranks, but to every one she had some objection to make. One was too fat. The wine cask... What do you mean, the wine cask? She said. What does that even mean? I feel like that's some sort of inside joke that doesn't make sense 400 years in the future. Another was too tall. Long and thin has little in. Okay. Third was too short. Short and thick is never quick. The fourth was too pale as death. The fifth too red. Really? I understand she's calling him a rooster, but still. The fifth too red, a fighting cock. The sixth was not straight enough. I'm resisting the urge to laugh at that. That's just... A green log dried behind the stove. So she had something to say against everyone. But she made herself especially merry over a good king who stood quite high up in the row, and whose chin had grown a little crooked. Well, she cried, and laughed, he has a chin like a thrush's beak. And from that time, he got the name of King Thrushbeard. Okay, we have a picture here So it says the beggar man led her out by the hand. So, okay. We'll get to that, I guess, at some point. But the old king, when he saw that his daughter did nothing but mock the people, and despised all the suitors who were gathered there, and was very angry, and swore that he should have for her husband the very first beggar that came to his doors. A few days afterwards a fiddler came and sang beneath the windows, trying to earn a small alms. When the king heard him, he said, "Let him come up." So the fiddler came in his dirty, ragged clothes, and sang before the king and his daughter. I wonder what the song was about. And when he had ended he asked for a trifling gift. The king said, "Your song has pleased me so well that I will give you my daughter to thee to wife." I mean, there's concerns here. Okay, we'll try to just keep reading. The king's daughter shuddered, but the king said, "I have taken an oath to you, to the very first beggar man, to give you to the... I have taken an oath to give you to the very first beggar man, and I will keep it." You took an oath to yourself. 1. You're breaking a promise to yourself. 2. Other people kind of have a say, in how their life, especially like something that important. That's I don't know what to say. I feel like this aged poorly. Because I feel like when this was written, it was probably like, yeah, great. But now, just like reading this in 2023, you're like, what? But what? Like, your daughter was arrogant and rude to people. Well, you talk to her about it, not marry her off to a random person you don't even know against her will. That's what? What? But now I'm assuming, because we talked about King Thrushbeard, I assume it was the King Thrushbeard dressed up, and both kings were in on it. But either way, even if it's revealed later, like, oh, I'm not actually a beggar. And keep on. I assume I read these stories at some point a couple of decades ago. But hey, that's a great thing. When you read stories and you forget the story and reread it, you get to re-enjoy it for the first time ever. I'll say this: I've never smoked weed, but I knew a bunch of people that smoked weed all the time, and they would keep watching Dazed and Confused, and they kept forgetting the movie. But I would just go to other parts of the house where they were throwing a party, because I'm like, I've seen this movie before. I remember the plot. It's okay, but I don't want to watch it again. But even then, even if it's like, oh, I am actually King Thrushbeard. See, it's like, it's kind of the frog. Like, yeah. On the one hand, okay, it's better that it's a human, but at the same time, it's still a problem. It's kind of like, okay, there's a difference between getting shot in the head or shot in the arm. It's like, it's just, I can assume that's where it's going, because I can see the picture of the dude who's the beggar walking with her, and I'm like, you see the beard. I'm like, okay, I can assume. Everyone's like, please stop commenting on the story. You're supposed to just be reading the story. It's going to take 4 hours for you to do the video if you stop. It's like when you started trying to read the Bible. It's like, Heck, even do the action Bible thing. You kept like you had to like stop yourself from like just like criticizing the Bible. It's like on the one hand, Bible is accurate history. On the other hand, there's fucked up shit that happens in a lot of missed details. And I will say this: a lot of things that happened back then, in regard to the way certain laws were, it was kind of necessary for them to survive as a society. Like, don't eat pork. Well, if you don't cook pork correctly, you get parasites and you die. And it's not like you had proper medicine to know that people had, worms in them in various organs, like their, intestines or liver or brain. You just notice that people are bleeding from everywhere, going crazy, and then dying. So, okay, let's stop eating that because everyone keeps dying. Or there's certain rules about hygiene because, you don't have antibiotics. So it's simply an issue of how do you not die? But at the same time, it's like, there are so many situations where people are just outright murdering each other, and it's like, but why though? But again, that's a good thing about story. Like, you shouldn't try to dress up a story to make a character like, oh no, we can't include this detail because it makes this character look bad. No, I prefer stories that are outright honest and straightforward about all the flaws of the character. I don't want you to dress up the character and just pretend that the flaws don't exist. You should be able to have the full story. I want, it's like whether it's the Bible or a video game, I don't like censorship. So, obviously just shouldn't just ignore the bad traits of a character. You should know the good and the bad. So if there's characters in the Bible doing really fucked up shit, well then at least we're being honest about the people doing fucked up shit. At that point, it's not an issue of, oh, it's good because this person did it. It's like, no, this person did a fucked up thing. This person just murdered these people. It's like, that's not good. But at least we're being honest about what actually occurred. And also probably makes a better story. Because no one goes to the movie theater to watch 3 hours of a calm conversation in which nothing happens. Because that'd just be boring. Heck, I think the Tool song Vicarious puts it pretty well. Everybody wants to be entertained. Heck, I remember the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from back in the 90s. They originally stopped airing that because they decided, oh, we need to start having educational cartoons. I'm like, do you expect cartoons to educate people? It's entertainment. But yeah, it's just like, heck, like I said, there were things that were kind of odd about the Red Riding Hood story. It's like telling her, oh, don't look around everyone in your grandma's house. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What prompted this? Or the thing oh, and then afterward, or it's just they cut the wolf open, he's not die, and then they put him full of rocks. It's like, but why though? I know there's a Snow White thing in here. I've not got to that, but I'm remembering Rammstein did a music video called Sonne, Sonne, I think, about Snow White, but they're all dwarves, and then but they're mining cocaine and heroin for Snow White and stuff, and I don't know. I really need to try to not suggest graphic music videos to people, because I can't go to people hey, I can't start someone off with Rammstein with Mein Herr ist Brent. They're gonna watch that music video and they're gonna oh dear God, what the fuck is this? And they're Lunar D8's crazy, and they're oh, they're not gonna want to talk to me anymore. I should start them off with Benzene, where they're all driving a giant monster truck, fire truck, and there's explosions everywhere, and everyone's yeah! I still say that the one video called Mon, Greg, and Mon, which again, lots of these videos that you probably shouldn't, don't click on Mon, Greg, and Mon, because, a lot of people would probably feel uncomfortable watching that. But I'm just saying there's a part where he yells a word that starts with the letter S, which apparently is a very bad slur word against gay people. But the first time I heard it, I didn't know the translations of the words. And when he says that S word, that's a slur, it sounds like the word strudel. So in my mind, I just hear Till Linderman screaming, "Strudel!" And I'm like, I'm fat. And it's like, on the one hand, that's kind of depressing because I don't like the way I look. But it's like, yeah, I'm fat and ugly. Sad face. Anyway, I like strudel. I like desserts. Hey, Arby's has like cherry and apple turnovers. You guys remember those little toaster strudels? It's just a little sweet pastry full of like fruit. I don't know if you guys can hear the quotation marks and question marks around that as I say it. It's like, can you hear italics? Do you not see the sarcasm in my text? But it's just like I think strudel. I'm like, yeah, snacks. Yeah, I'm hungry. Oh yeah, I think the first Rammstein video I tried to do was Kind Loosed. I know I've tried Mein Herr is Brent a few times. I still want to try to learn Japanese just so I can sing Japanese anime songs. So I keep procrastinating on that. But yeah, I'm hungry. Maybe I should like. It's like, sir, did you just buy 40 boxes of toaster strudels? It's like, I'm hungry. It's like, sir, this is a Wendy's. Oh, everyone's like, this is not funny. I'm like, yeah, I know. Just, okay, I should really try to focus on the story. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about. I just started talking about strudel. Oh yeah, Kind Loose. That's a really good song. But they're all like wearing fat suits with that. Like each of the videos has like, they're well done, but some of them I'm like, I don't want to suggest to people because I'm worried that they'll like watch the video and then not want to talk to me anymore. Like, oh, every person that was subscribed, you unsubscribed because they watched the Rammstein song that you suggested and they were so disturbed by it they don't want to talk to you anymore. It's like, yeah. Okay, let's get back to this. Where was I? Okay. All she could... Again, like I said, you're breaking a promise to yourself. Like, that's fine. It's like... There's... Like, I think this is an okay exception. Also, again, whether it's your word or not, I don't think you can really imply that against somebody else's free will. They're not the one... And even if they kept the oath, I mean... Even if she had made the oath, like... I feel like... Like, one, maybe... What if it was just said in sarcasm? What if it was just... And even then, it's like... People can change their mind. And even then, she didn't even have the initial mind for this. I'm just like... What the fuck? Come on! Okay, try not to... Just read the story. Read the story. We don't need to comment on the story. No one wants to hear the comments. Then again, nobody wants to hear you read the story either. Everyone has already clicked off the video. At least it's not as bad as your karaoke. Like I said, I like singing. I'm just terrible at it. But it's fun. Okay. All she could say was in vain. The priest... Oh, fuck. The priest was brought... and she had to let herself be wedded to the fiddler on the spot. When that was done, the king said, "Now it is not proper for you, a beggar woman, to stay any longer in my palace, and you may just go away with your husband." I mean, again, I assume this is King Thrushbeard, and, the king is in on it. But, yeah. Again, here's the thing. And regardless of what anyone feels about the story, I don't think this story should ever be censored or erased, because I think history is important to be preserved. You can't just erase a story just because you don't like it. Yes, there's elements of this story that are fucked up. All the more reason to keep the story.
art imitates life, life imitates art. Hell, there's people that watch too much anime or movies, or they'll go like watch a movie in a movie theater. And granted, even if a movie's based on real life, there's stuff that's changed for dramatic effect. But there are people that will, start imitating what they see in movies, and you'll start to see it in culture as lots of people do that, and it start to sort of becomes part of the culture. In the same regard, usually people make music or movies based on the culture they're trying to appeal to. And usually they have to be somewhat, recognizable to whatever culture you're trying to appeal to. Like if you're trying to get a lot of people that like Dragon Ball Z to like your anime, well, it's going to have a lot of fight scenes. Know your audience. In this case, I don't have one. I'm just a crazy guy on the internet who talks to himself. All other people on YouTube are like, it's like that technically applies to the rest of us. I guess, I don't know. It's your guys' call, I'm just saying. I don't like the idea of censoring stories. Even if you don't like what's said in it, it's all the more reason. That way you have an accurate... Because here's the thing. One, to a large degree, this is actually how a lot of the past was. Otherwise this story would not have been accepted in the past. And two, like I said, it's art imitates life, life imitates art. They're writing a story based on what's feasible, for that time period. So it kind of can be like a time capsule, just to see into the past and see what things are like. But again, I just say, I don't like censorship in regard to, you shouldn't, erase a story just because you don't like it. Or just because there's something fucked up going in it. Now, of course, probably should make sure only adults read the story, but I don't like the idea of changing or altering the past. I feel that's dishonest. Anyway, where was I? Everyone's like, please stop going off on tangents. Read the story. And I'm like, I can't. I'm trying. I can't. The beggar man led her outside, and she was obliged to walk away on foot with him. I really shouldn't criticize their shitty shoes, because, it's the past. But still, that's gotta be uncomfortable. What, do you expect them to have fucking goddamn memory foam? I'm just saying! That would be so uncomfortable to walk. Okay, just read the story. Okay, way on foot. Do I have water? Thirsty. Everyone's like, this is the least professional reading we've ever heard. I'm like, there's only one consistency to my channel. A complete and total lack of any amount of professionalism. When they came to a large forest, she asked, to whom does that beautiful forest belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours. Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard. Afterwards they came to a meadow, and she asked, to whom does the beautiful green meadow belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours. Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard. Then they came to a large town, and she asked again, to whom does the fine large town belong? It belongs to King Thrushbeard. If you had taken him, it would have been yours. Ah, unhappy girl that I am, if I had but taken King Thrushbeard. It does not please me, said the fiddler, to hear you always wishing for another husband. Am I not good enough for you? Let's be clear. On the one hand, if a person is married to somebody, you shouldn't be comparing to them other people, or, saying you would desire somebody else. But it's not like everyone entered into this agreement on, consensual basis. Granted, on the one hand, people can change their minds, but at the same time, you should treat your partner with respect, both ways. Both people should actually respect and care about each other. I mean, hell, no relationship should ever have abuse or violence or yelling or... Just saying this. Anyone out there, doesn't matter what gender or sexuality you are, if your partner is abusive to you, get the fuck out. Like I said, it doesn't matter what gender or sexuality you are. You should not be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't care about you, doesn't like you, is abusive to you, physically or verbally. Get the fuck out. Nobody should be treated badly. But yeah, like I said, just on the one hand, like if you are in a relationship with somebody, whether you're married or not, you shouldn't be comparing them to other people or saying you would rather be with somebody else. Heck, if your partner says that, you probably should break up with them. But this doesn't apply in this situation. This wasn't a consensual situation. This is again, it's one thing I usually say. All situations, for me, there is no left or right. There's just making a decision based off of logical facts. Just try to do what's, logical. And the fuck? It's just, the fuck. Because like I said, I'll say this, no matter what religion or political belief of any kind you are, I'm sure there's something I believe in that would piss you off. Like I said, whether it's religion, politics, or belief, a lot of things are nuanced. And some things are not. But there's some things that are big gray areas. And other things are pretty clear-cut, black and white, as far as right or wrong. But other things, there's lots of circumstances. And again, that's why you take the time to evaluate things and try to and like I said, some things are nuanced. Here's a nuance. If you're in a relationship with somebody, comparing them to other people, or saying you'd rather be with someone else, is hurtful to that person, and you shouldn't do that. But in the situation where it's not consensual that you're married to that person, this no longer applies. Because like I said, if you're actually, voluntarily choosing to be in a relationship with somebody, one, if you would rather be with someone else, then you should just do that instead of cheating or... The same regard, if, like I said, if your partner says she'd rather be with somebody else, or that he'd rather be with somebody else, you should just get the fuck out. Because why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't care about you? But yeah, it's just again, and everyone's this story is 2 pages. It is 40 minutes. It says, read the story. I'm just saying, and I know obviously this has to be King Thrushbeard. But, and it's just what the fuck? It's burning up. I need to turn up the air conditioning. Like I said, I'm thankful to live in modern time. I have antibiotics and air conditioning and anime, a very comfy bed, and a hot shower. I'm gonna turn on this little fan. So I'm go. It's too hot. Okay, where was I? Okay, next page. At last they came to a very little hut, and she said, "Oh goodness, what a small house! To whom does this miserable mean hovel belong?" The fiddler answered, "This is my house, and yours, where we will live together." She had to stoop in order to get to the low door. "Where are the servants?" said the king's daughter. "What servants?" asked the beggar man. "You must yourself do what you wish to have done. Just make a fire at once and set on water cook my supper. I am quite tired. I am glad I live in an era of electricity where you just push a button and it heats up a kettle." I mean, there is something to be said for self-sufficiency, but again, this doesn't really apply in this circumstance. But the king's daughter knew nothing about lighting fires or cooking, and the beggar man had to lend a hand himself to get anything fairly done. When they had finished their scanty... Okay, am I the only one concerned about having someone make a fire who doesn't actually know how to make a fire that's going to burn down the wooden house? This is not the time to be concerned about safety. What are you, a fucking OSHA inspector? Okay, when they had finished their scanty meal, they went to bed. But he forced her to get up quite early in the morning in order to look after the house. For a few days they lived in this way, as well as might be, and came to the end of all their provisions. Then the man said, "Wife, we cannot go on any longer eating and drinking here and earning nothing. You must weave baskets." He went out, cut some willows, and brought some home. Then she began to weave, but the tough willows wounded her delicate hands. "I see that this will not do," said the man. "You had better spin. Perhaps you can do that better." She sat down and tried to spin, but the hard threads soon cut her soft fingers. The past just fucking sucked. So the blood ran down. "That sounds painful." "See," said the man, "you are fit for no sort of work." Okay. "I have made a bad bargain with you. Now I will try to make a business with pots and earthenware. You must sit in the marketplace and sell the ware." "Alas," thought she, "if any of the people from my father's kingdom come to the market and see me sitting there selling, how they will mock me." But it was of no use. She had to yield unless she chose to die of hunger. For the first time, she succeeded well. The people were glad to buy the woman's wares because she was good-looking, and they paid her for what she asked. Many even gave her the money and left the pots with her as well. So they lived on what she had earned as long as it lasted. Then the husband bought a lot of new crockery. With this, she sat down at the corner of the marketplace and set it all round about her, ready for sale. But suddenly there came a drunken hussar, Hussar, galloping along. So like a horse? A donkey? A person who rides a horse? You don't call that a jockey. That's like the small horse. People that race like ponies and stuff. I assume it's like a person who like rides a horse professionally for the military? I don't remember. I'm just going to imagine a drunken horse. And now I'm thinking about the manga Berserk. Well, this turned a lot darker. And he rode right amongst the pots so that they were all broken into thousands of bits. Okay. She began to weep and did not know what to do for fear. "Alas, what will happen to me?" cried she. "What will my husband say to this?" Okay. She ran home and told him of the misfortune. "Who would seat herself at a corner of the marketplace with crockery?" said the man. "Leave off crying. I see very well you cannot do any ordinary work. So I have been to our king's palace and have asked whether they can find a place for a kitchen maid, and they have promised me to take you. And that way you will get your food for nothing." The king's daughter was now a kitchen maid, and had to be at cook's beck and call, and to do the dirtiest work. In both her pockets she fastened a little jar, in which she took home her fair share of leavings. And on the one hand, part of me's like, it's like, rich people. On the other hand, this is still fucked up. But yeah, and of course, like, and like on the one hand you can say, oh, it's a lesson to teach people the value of hard work and to appreciate what you have in life. But this is not how you do that. This is also, she was in what? Her mid-20s by this point? Shouldn't, during any point of the king's parenting have actually, gotten to know his own daughter well enough to not have her just be rude to people? Or at least to find someone suitable? Like he acts like he was all surprised at her being rude. I'm like, dude, this is your own child. You've known this person for decades. Well, no, probably just because, depending on situations, people didn't live very long. It's like people say, oh, people in the past were more sturdy. No, they weren't. All the people we know about in the past are just the people that survived. There's a reason the human population didn't go above 1 billion until like the 18th century. Because everyone kept dying from everything, and there was constant war. The past sucked. I would have been dead 1,000 times over. One, modern medicine. Two, I'm pretty sure I would have just been straight up killed thousands of times in the past. But yeah, it's like most of the people didn't survive. It's like, oh, the people back then were tougher. No, most of them weren't. The people that survived are basically either the people that were lucky or the Mike Tysons of the world. It's like, there were so many things that kill you, but at least, and granted, life isn't exactly guaranteed. There's always a chance you can get a car accident or something, but I'm just saying we have modern medicine now. But I'm just saying this is... And again, on the one hand, I'm like, you can't really judge people of the past based on the present, the standard of the present, that's just, they didn't have electricity and it was a different time, you had to do stuff to survive. At the same time, it's just like, so much of this makes me feel uncomfortable. In regard that it just seems like the idea of, consent to like what you do with your life doesn't exist. So it's like, so many things that are just kind of like, what? Granted, again, I would not want any of this to be edited or censored. It's kind of like, just obviously not meant for younger audiences. Kind of like Berserk manga. The Berserk manga is awesome. Should not be edited, and it's part of the story. After all, especially if you just if you deleted all the pages where somebody dies, there'd be like 2 pages left. It's like, oh, it's Guts eating soup. Oh. It's Guts talking to everybody on a boat. The end. I mean, literally, there's a point where he goes into an ocean inside a giant shark where the white blood cells are all smaller sharks and stabs a giant, throbbing heart in the ocean where just the shock waves of it pumping are breaking his bones. Where was I? Again. On the one hand, you can see where they're trying to go with the story. On the other hand, you're like, fuck. I don't know. Then again, maybe I'm just too idealistic. It's kind of like the idea, I think it'd be better if we had a world without any war at all. But at the same time, if your enemies are choosing that they absolutely are going to go to war, well, at that point, you can't just use words. You're going to have to. But it's kind of like this. I at least very strongly like the idea of pacifism. I try my best to do it. The only times I've ever hurt anybody was always self-defense. Heck, many situations I wouldn't be around had I not. But despite the fact that I do play a lot of violent video games, I watch a lot of violent anime, I don't want to actually ever hurt anybody if I can help it. And it's like, again, I can't criticize or judge anyone who does anything in a war, because that's just the way war is. War is hell. And some people say, oh, the human race has evolved and become better because of all the murders and wars that we've had. And while necessity is the, virtue or, survival, basically, dangerous situations where you have to get better in order to survive, yes, it helps people to invent things faster. But the cost to it comes at is too high. There are certain things that happen to people in the world and certain things that have happened in the past that just, even if it speeds up the development of the human race, it's not worth it. There are certain things like war that it shouldn't exist. But obviously, just being idealistic about it isn't going to make war not exist. And hell, there's plenty of times where I feel pissed off at people and I want to deck them in the face. Heck, part of the survival instinct is, the instinct to fight, because it makes you stronger, and it helps you to get resources for survival, and it helps in life in lots of ways. But at the same time, it's just like, I understand it's unrealistic, but I prefer the idealistic way of looking at the world, of wanting to, just be kind to everybody, for there not to be war or violence. But that's not the way the world works. And again, I definitely don't judge people harshly or at all for doing what they have to. Heck, a lot of people doing what they do out there in wars has kept other people safe and saved innocent people's lives. It's just, I certainly would never want to be the one to do any of those things. To have to actually, I would certainly never want to be drafted into a military and forced to have to hurt other people or risk getting killed myself. Especially if it were ever a cause I didn't believe in. But even for a cause I believe in, that's, I don't know, I don't like the idea of forcing people to do something against their will. Like, the whole idea of a draft is, okay, you're forcing somebody into a life and death situation where they have to kill other people to not die. And even if it's for a good cause, it's still, how can you be the good guys if you're forcing people to do something against their will? Hell, my biggest thing with the Bible is I'm a very strong supporter of the idea of free will. I don't like the idea that people are just puppets and we should just do blind obedience. Like the idea like this, people have different, ideas of what sin is. Whether sin is, it's evil, or it's, loss of self-control, or disobedience, especially to God or the church. Me, I'd say the biggest thing is this. Base what you do off of logic, reason, compassion, kindness. Is what you're doing benefiting you? Does it hurt others? But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. The logic of do this or else you'll be punished. Technically by that logic you could apply it to anything. You could apply it to, you have to be hateful to this group of people, or you have to do this very bad thing or else you'll go to hell. At which point you're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. You're doing it because you're scared of a punishment. At which point, the reasoning could be applied to anything, even the most evil of things, even the most violent of things. You shouldn't do something just because, you were told to or you're threatened to. There should be some logical reason why you choose to do it. And again, it's good. I can't blame people not wanting to be punished at the same time. Also, I feel like I need to go poop. I have to go poop really badly. And I don't know if I can hold it. Part of me's like, I can just at least finish the King Thrushbeard story, but there's a whole page. I have to go to the toilet really badly. But I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm just overly idealistic, and of course the past, you had to live a certain way for survival. But the way I look at it is this. Free will is extremely important. And if you're going to tell somebody whether or not to do or not do something, it should have a logical reason. Like, okay, you shouldn't, drive the wrong way on a freeway because you'd get yourself and other people hurt. Not, don't do this because you might go to jail. Oh no. You shouldn't do it because you're going to get people hurt. But I don't know. I think there was something about tier of societies in the past about what it takes to motivate people to do things, and it's whether or not you motivate people by just punishment and reward instead of just trying don't live as a good person. To be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this one thing because it hurts people. Or, hey, maybe like, oh, should you do heroin? Well, people could say, oh, you shouldn't do heroin, it's illegal. I mean, yeah, technically it's illegal, and that's bad. You know, illegal things would come with jail time and stuff, right? True. But it should be more like, oh, it's an extremely addictive thing that can fry your brain. And, you know, kill you. And you're like, well, that's still negatives. But the thing is this. Those negatives are directly caused by the thing you're told not to do. Not some arbitrary force or person behind you saying, I'm watching you, and if you do what I don't like, I'll hurt you. At that point, it basically amounts to just do as you're told or I'll beat the shit out of you. And I'm like, that's fucked up. It should be more like, do what you're told, because I'm telling you not to, like, I don't know, juggle chainsaws on a roof. Because if you drop the chainsaws, you know, you'll die. As they, like, slice into... Ow, I bumped the... I was going to, like, point to my clavicle. You guys can't see that. But then I bumped the microphone. But you guys get the idea. I didn't need to explain it. But that's just the way I talk to myself. The only difference is, you know, I'm bringing you guys along for the ride. But, yeah, I'm just saying. I have a lot of different political reasonings on things that I don't think anybody agrees with any of it, but there's always some sort of logical reason on it. Which is really just set for, okay, what makes it, you know, avoids, you know, people getting hurt. I don't know. A lot of this is just the fact I feel like talking, and it's just like, again, if I wasn't recording, I'd just be having this conversation with myself. Not that it's coherent, because I keep sort of just switching topics, but still. You guys get the point. Now, where was I? Cooks beck and call and do the dirtiest work. In both her pockets she fastened a little jar, and when she took home her share of the leavings. Okay? And upon this they lived. It happened that the wedding of the king's eldest son was to be celebrated, so the poor woman went up and placed herself by the door of the hall to look on. When all the candles were lit and the people were more beautiful than the other, entered, and all was full of pomp and splendor, she thought of her lot with a sad heart, and cursed the pride and haughtiness which had humbled her, and brought her to so great poverty. The smell of the delicious dishes, which were taken in and out of, reached her, and now the servants threw her a few morsels of them. These she put in her jars and took home. All at once the king's son entered, clothed in velvet and silk, with gold chains about his neck. And when he saw the beautiful woman standing by the door, he seized her by the hand, and would have danced with her. But she refused and shrank with fear, for she saw it was King Thrushbeard, her suitor, from whom he had driven away with scorn. Her struggles were of no avail. Okay? We're just going to try to continue reading without commenting. Her struggles were of no avail. He drew her into the hall, but the string by which her pockets were hung broke, and the pots fell down. Now I'm just imagining, like, it's like Batman. You have a utility belt, but it's of pots of food. It's okay. We went from thinking about fairy tales to Batman. And when the people saw it, they arose general laughter and derision, and she was so ashamed that she would rather have been 1,000 fathoms below the ground. She sprang to the door and would have run away, but on the stairs a man caught her and brought her back. And when she looked at him, it was King Thrushbeard again, and he said to her kindly, "Do not be afraid. I am the fiddler." Okay, it says and. It says and. I shouldn't be pissed about the freaking spelling mistake. But this is a professional book. It says I and A and D, not I am. It doesn't say I am, it says I and the fiddler who has been living with you in the wretched hovel are one. Oh, I and the okay, so they actually are correct. I'm the one who jumped the gun. I'm just saying I would have phrased it as I am the fiddler who has been living with you. But, if I had read the rest of the sentence, it would be I and the fiddler who has been living with you in that wretched hovel are one. Okay, so I was just impatient. For love of you, I disguised myself so. And I also was the hussar who rode through your crop. So you're... okay! This was all done to humble your proud spirit, and to punish you for the insolence with which you mocked me. Okay. Then she wept bitterly and said, I have done great wrong, and am not worthy to be your wife. But he said, be comforted, the evil days are past. Now we will celebrate our wedding. Then the maids in waiting came and put on her most splendid clothing, and her father and his whole court came and wished her happiness in her marriage. And with King Thrushbeard, the joy now began in earnest. I wish you and I had been there too. What is that last line? What is that? What? I mean, I'm sure there was great food there, but still. The very last sentence of the story is, I wish you and I had been there too. And here's the thing, it's like, yes, I agree people shouldn't be arrogant or haughty or, be rude to people, but I don't... it's just... I don't know what to say. Why do I have to have some sort of issue with every story I find in this book? Okay, Tom Thumb. There once was a poor peasant who sat in the evening by the hearth and poked the fire, and his wife sat and span. Then said he, how sad it is that we have no children. With us all is so quiet, and in other houses it is noisy and lively. Yes, replied the wife, and sighed, even if we had only one, and it were quite small, and only as big as a thumb, I should be quite satisfied, and we would still love it with all our hearts. Now it so happened that the woman fell ill, and after 7 months gave birth to a child. Why do I feel like this is somehow based off a real story, given the time period for that pregnancy? Did you not know she was pregnant until the child came out? What the fuck is with medieval medicine? Hell, even when George Washington got sick, like the literal first president of America, our idea of modern medicine was, oh, his humors are out of balance and the different phlegms and stuff. We need to feed him stuff that'll make him puke and have diarrhea to rebalance him, and also put leeches on him. We're talking about a thing that's not even 300 years ago. Hell, the person who initially found out that, had the idea that, hey, illnesses are caused by germs and microorganisms called bacteria, was locked in an insane asylum because nobody would believe him. Heck, it was believed that a doctor's hands should be dirty during a surgery because it helped to make it more natural as he cut into you. Dear God, I'm glad we live in an era of fucking anesthetics. Fuck. Fuck. And perfect in all its limbs, but no longer than a thumb. Given how big certain... Okay, just say it. How big a fetus is at certain points. I feel like this is like a story written by people that had a miscarriage, but the child was, but they are trying to think more hopeful, like, oh, it's fine, we just, if only it kept living, and this is just dark. Like, most of these stories are just either ill-begotten attempts at morality or people coping with the terrible fate that is living in the fucking past, where everything was fucking shitty. Hey, you want to live in a place that has no sugar? Yes, probably healthier. I probably wouldn't be a fucking fat ass. Then again, I'd be dead 1,000 times over. But I feel like this story was just written to help people that went through a tragic thing to somehow cope with their suffering. But I feel like everything in the past was suffering. Even if you were a king, you essentially still shat in a fucking outhouse. And your medicine, I feel like the poorest person in the modern time has access to better medicine and health care, no matter where you are in the world, than the richest person in the past. I'm just saying I'm grateful for anime and air conditioning and medicine and the delicious food with which I am fat. I like ice cold Pepsi, okay? I like Pepsi. Though if it's flat, I will fucking punch you. Because it's flat and you have ruined the Pepsi. And all the world was sad. Okay, I'm being overly dramatic, but you guys get the point. Ice cold Pepsi is good. You don't want it to be flat, you don't want it to be warm. But imagine you just open a fresh can of ice cold Pepsi, pour it in some ice cubes. That's delicious. It's great. Who doesn't like an ice cold Pepsi? One of two things would happen if you went back in the past and gave people in the past, the foods we have nowadays. The least likely of which is they would like the food and they would thank you. What would more likely happen is that their digestive system would not be able to handle it and they would die or become very sick. Heck, I think I remember, what was it, pewter or lime or something? I think it was pewter or some type of metal. They would eat different foods on it, like some foods. Like pewter, I think, if I remember right, pewter had lead in it, but it was usually inside the pewter, so it wouldn't affect what you, if you used it as utensils or plates, you're fine. But if you ate something acidic on it, like tomatoes, the acid in the tomatoes would bring the lead up, and you would actually get lead poisoning. And here's the thing. Again, it might not have been pewter. I might be remembering that wrong. But it was something that people, especially royalty, would eat often. And they would eat a bunch of tomatoes, and people get sick. And so they thought the tomatoes were poisonous. When in actuality, it's your fucking dishware. I also like music. The fact that I can just, listen to, Metallica and awesome music. And watch, movies like Conan the Barbarian. Heck, play video games. I have a PS4. And to run around a radiated apocalypse shooting things with Fallout 4 stuff. Hopefully that doesn't become real life, though. Because I feel like I would be very annoyed at radiation poisoning. Everyone's like, are you making light of a thing? No, I'm just saying it would suck horribly. But I'm trying to not be such a downer. It's of all the things we have to be a downer about, I think radiation sickness and the eventual death of all living things is... I'm trying not to be so fucking depressing, okay? It's this has not been the video for that. The whole video has just been you reading 2 sentences and then stopping and being oh, this is about people that got really depressed, that, they went through a shitty situation with a child dying at birth and just wishing that they didn't lose a loved one. And that's literally all. It's a story of people writing a fantasy story to cope with suffering. Then again, maybe that's what this entire thing is. It's people that are really bored, want anything for entertainment. I mean, all in all, they're good stories in terms of that they are entertaining. And no matter what time period you are, now granted, if you're other areas of the world, you might have to translate it. But I'm pretty sure, like, if you went to another part of the world, like, you should be able to think. There are so many different time periods. Pick one. Okay, 2,500 years ago in China, and you translate all of it into Chinese. I'm pretty sure all the people in China would at least find it interesting to read the story. Now, would they agree with, the so-called morals that are in the story? Who knows? There might be some people that really embrace it, some that don't. I'm just saying, some of this stuff's really fucking depressing. And still, like, what was the part with Little Red Riding Hood? She went home, like, literally it ended and it said, she went home and did no harm to anyone. Why was it implied that she was a serial killer? Like, what is happening? Heck, it's like, I don't remember what story it was, but there was a story where it's like, everyone was miserable and then they died. As opposed to, they lived happily ever after. No, it's like, everyone was miserable until they died. And they all died. Every last one of them. Super dead. I'm like, it's like, yeah, that's a bit of a downer end to a story there. Okay. I really should try to stop getting distracted. I should not make commentary. I should just read the story. Okay. And because of his size, they named it Tom Thumb. Maybe he doesn't want to be reminded of that. And it's like, hi, you're short. I mean, isn't that the thing, the little Jack Horner? Yes, we're now making a Puss in Boots joke. I'm trying to sound like the fucking trailer. Where was I? They did not let it want for food. Yep. Okay, whatever. But the child did not grow taller, but remained as it had been as the first. Nevertheless, it looked sensibly out of its eyes, and soon showed itself to be a wise and nimble creature, for everything it did turned out well. Okay. One day, the peasant was getting ready to go into the forest to cut wood, when he said as to himself, "How I wish that there was anyone who would bring the cart to me." "Oh, father," cried Tom Thumb, "I will soon bring the cart. Rely on that, and it shall be in the forest at the appointed time." The man smiled and said, "How can that be done? Thou art far too small to lead the horse by the reins." "That's of no consequence, father. If my mother will only harness it, I shall sit in the horse's ear and call out to him how he should to go." "Well," answered the man, "for once we will try it." That sounds incredibly dangerous. When the time came, the mother harnessed the horse and placed Tom in its ear. That probably smells horrible. And then the little creature cried, "Gee up, gee up." Then it went quite properly as if its master. And the cart went the right way into the forest. And it so happened that as he was turning a corner, the little one was crying, "Get up!" Two strange men came toward him. "My word," said one of them, "what is this? There is a cart coming, and a driver is calling to the horse, and still he is not to be seen." "That can't be right," said the other. "We will follow the cart and see where it stops." The cart, however, drove right into the forest, in exactly the place where it would have been cut. When Tom Thumb saw his father, he cried to him, saying, "Seest thou, father, here I am with the cart. Now take me down." The father got hold of the horse with his left hand, and with the right took his little son out of the ear. Tom Thumb sat down quite merrily on a straw. But when the two strange men saw him, they did not know what to say for astonishment. Then one of them took the other aside and said, "Hark, the little fellow would make our fortune if we exhibit him in a large town. For money we will buy him." "You guys are dicks." They went to the peasant and said, "Sell us the little man. He shall be well treated with us." "No," replied the father, "he is the apple of my eye, and all the money in the world cannot buy him from me." Tom Thumb, however, when he heard of the bargain, had crept up to the folds of his father's coat, placed himself on his shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "Father, do give me away. I will soon come back again." Then the father parted with him to the two men for a handsome bit of money. "Where wilt thou sit?" they said to him. "Oh, just set me on the rim of your hat, and then I can walk backwards and forwards and look at the country, and still not fall down." They did as he wished, and when Tom Thumb had taken leave of his father, they went away with him. They walked away until it was dusk. And then the little fellow said, "Do take me down. I want to come down." The man took his hat off and put the little fellow on the ground by the wayside, and he leapt and crept about a bit, little bit, between the sods. Okay, so broken bits of turf and grass. Then he suddenly slipped into a mouse hole when he got sawed out. Okay, that sounds incredibly dangerous. This is like Dark Souls. Like, all the animals are gigantic. This is like the real Dark Souls begins now! Fuck. Good evening, gentlemen. Just go home without me, he cried to them. It mocked them. They ran thither and stuck their sticks into the mouse hole. But it was all lost labor. Tom Thumb crept still further in. And as soon as it became quite dark, they were forced to go home with their vexation and their empty purses. When Tom Thumb saw that they were gone, he crept back out of the subterranean passage. "It is so dangerous to walk on the ground in the dark," said he. "How easily a neck or leg is broken." Fortunately, he knocked against an empty snail shell. "Thank God," said he, "in that I can pass the night in safety," and got into it. Not long afterward, when he was just going to sleep, he heard two men going by, and one of them saying, "How shall we continue to get hold of the rich pastor's silver and gold?" "I could tell thee that," cried Tom Thumb, interrupting. "What was that?" said one of the thieves in fright. "I heard someone speaking." They stood still listening. Tom Thumb spoke again and said, "Take me with you, and I'll help you." "But where art thou? Just look on the ground and observe from whence my voice comes," he replied. There the thieves at length found him, and lifted him up. "Thou little imp, how wilt thou help us?" they said. "A great deal," said he. "I will creep into the pastor's room, through the iron bars, and will reach out to you whatever you want to have." "Come then," they said, "and we will see what thou canst do." When they got to the pastor's house, Tom Thumb crept into the room, but instantly cried out with all his might, "Do you want to have everything that is in here?" The thieves were alarmed and said, "But do speak softly, so as not to waken anyone." Tom Thumb, however, behaved as if he had not understood this, and cried again, "What do you want? Do you want to have everything that is in here?" The cook, who slept in the next room, heard this and sat up in bed and listened. The thieves, however, had in their fright run some distance away, but at last they took courage and thought, "The little rascal wants to mock us." They came back and whispered to him, "Come, be serious, and reach something out to us." Then Tom Thumb again cried as loudly as he could, "I really will give you everything, just put your hands in." The maid, who was listening, heard this quite distinctly, and jumped out of bed and rushed to the door. The thieves took flight, and ran as if the wild huntsman was right behind them. But as the maid could not see anything, she went to strike a light. But when she came to the place with it, Tom Thumb, unperceived, betook himself to the granary, and the maid, after she had examined every corner, and found nothing to lay down. Okay, just so we're all clear where my mind just went. My Hero Academia. I forget what she's called, like Mountain or something. The woman that can become very, very tall. Yes, I'm imagining being Tom Thumb's size. With giant woman with giant titties. That's where we went. Just full disclosure. That's what I was thinking of. Who else thought that? Who? Just me? Just me? Okay. Just so we're clear. Managing expectations here. Okay, where were we? After she had examined every corner and found nothing, lay down in her bed again, and believed that, after all, she had only been dreaming with her open eyes and ears. Tom Thumb had climbed up among the hay and found a beautiful place to sleep in. There he intended to rest until day. I'm still thinking about in between her boobs. Just saying, I'm just being honest here. Where were we? Right, I'm looking for the word actual boobs. No, my thoughts are not on the paper. It's not part of the story. It's me talking bullshit. What is the actual words? Okay. After he examined every corner, found he lay down in her bed again, and believed that, after all, she had only been... Oh, right. Tom Thumb... And then go home to his parents. But he had other things to go through. Truly, there is much affliction and misery in this world. When day dawned, the maid arose from her bed to feed the cows. I read an R that does not exist. Her first walk was into the barn, where she laid hold of an armful of hay, and precisely that very one in which poor Tom was laying. I had to burp. Asleep. Oh, I completely forgot that I had to go to the bathroom. I just don't have to go to the bathroom anymore. Or do I? I don't know. Yeah, I just don't really have the urge to go to the bathroom anymore. Okay. Where was I? I don't know what part of that reminded me of that I was having to go to the bathroom earlier. He, however, was sleeping so soundly that he was unaware of nothing. He did not awake until he was in the mouth of a cow, being chewed apart and his flesh being ripped apart. Who had picked him up with the hay? Oh, heavens, cried he. How have I gotten into the fulling mill? But he soon discovered where he was, that it was necessary to be careful not to let himself go down between the teeth and be dismembered. But he was nevertheless forced to slip down into the stomach with the hay. Here's a question. Did people in the past know cows had 4 stomachs? Because they said, into the stomach with the hay. Okay, did they know? Did they know that cows had 4 stomachs back then? In this little room, the windows are forgotten, said he, and no sun shines in. Neither will a candle. Are you not being, melted alive? Like Zero the kamikaze squirrel in the toxic river? In the fucking stomach acid that is the inside of an actual fucking animal? His quarters were especially unpleasing to him. And the worst was, more and more hay was coming in by the door. Did they even understand the inside of a stomach was acidic back then? Again, I'm not trying to criticize the intelligence of people. I'm just saying, as time goes on, people have more. Because the only reason I know this stuff is because it was in a book. And because it's something you can learn in school. So again, it's not like it's any, virtue of my own. I just have access to books with modern stuff. And again, there's plenty of stuff back in the past I wouldn't know how to do. Like properly navigate with the stars. But where was I? Then at length, in his anguish, he cried as loud as he could, Bring me no more fodder. Bring me no more fodder. The maid was just milking the cow when she heard someone speaking and saw no one, and perceived that it was the same voice that she had heard in the night. She was so terrified that she slipped off her stool and spilt the milk. She ran into great haste to her master and said, "O heavens, pastor, the cow has been speaking." "Thou art mad," replied the pastor, but he went himself to the byre to see what was there. Hardly, however, had he set his foot inside when Tomthumb cried again, "Bring me no more fodder. Bring me no more fodder." Then the pastor himself was alarmed, and thought that an evil spirit had gone into the cow, and ordered her to be killed. She was killed, but the stomach which Tomthumb was thrown on the midden. Tomthumb had great difficulty in working his way, but, however, he had succeeded so far as to come to the room. But just as he was going to thrust his head out, a new misfortune occurred. A hungry wolf ran thither and swallowed the whole stomach at one gulp. Tomthumb did not lose courage. Perhaps, thought he, the wolf will listen to what I have to say, and he called to him from out of the stomach, "Dear wolf, I know of a magnificent feast for thee." "Where is it to be had?" said the wolf. "In such and such a house. Thou must creep in through the kitchen sink, and wilt find cakes and bacon and sausages, and as much of them as thou canst eat." And he described to them exactly his father's house. The wolf did not require to be told this twice, squeezed himself in at night through the sink, and ate to his heart's content in the larder. When he had eaten his fill, he wanted to go out again, but he had become so big that he could not go out by the same way. Tomthumb had reckoned on this, and now began to make a violent noise inside the wolf's body, and raged and screamed as loudly as he could. "Wilt thou be quiet?" said the wolf. "Thou wilt waken up the people." What?" replied the little fellow. "Thou hast eaten thy fill, and I will make merry likewise," and began once more to scream with all his strength. At last his father and mother were aroused by it, and ran to the room, and looked in through the opening of the door. When they saw that a wolf was inside, they ran away, and the husband fetched his axe, and the wife the scythe. "Stay behind," said the man, When they entered the room, "When I have given him a blow, if he is not to be killed by it, thou must cut him down and hew his body in pieces." Then Tom Thumb heard his parents' voices and cried, "Dear father, I am here. I am in the wolf's body." Said the father, full of joy, "Thank God, our dear child has found us again. A little early to celebrate, but I guess," and bade the woman take away her scythe. That Tom, again, are we forgetting stomach acid as a thing that exists? Or that things don't stay in a stomach indefinitely? No, but he's just inside of the wolf's stomach munching on the sausages that this wolf already ate. Thank God our dear child has found us again, and bade the woman take away her scythe. Tom Thumb might not be hurt with it. After that he raised his arm and struck the wolf with such a blow on his head that he fell down dead, and then got knives and scissors and cut his body open and drew the little fellow forth. "Ah," said the father, "what sorrow we have gone through for thy sake." "Yes, father, I have gone about the world a great deal. Thank heaven, I breathe fresh air again." "Where hast thou been, then?" "Ah, father, I have been in a mouse's hole, in a cow's stomach, and then in a wolf's. Now I will stay with you, and we will not sell thee again. No, not for all the riches in the world," said his parents, and they embraced and kissed their dear Tom Thumb. They had gave him to eat and to drink, and had some new clothes made for him, for his own had been spoiled on the journey. Yeah, I would imagine. Okay, one more story. The Robber Bridegroom. I will try not to get, off target, off topic. The Robber Bridegroom. There once on a time a miller who had a beautiful daughter. Why do all the stories start like this? And as she was grown up, she had... I had to burp. I'll drink some more water. I have some brisk iced tea in the fridge. I'll grab some of that in a bit. He wished that she was provided for him, and well married. He thought, if any good suitor comes and asks for her, I will give her to him. Not long afterwards, a suitor came. He appeared to be very rich, and as the miller had no fault to find with him, he promised his daughter to him. The maid, however, did not like him quite so much as a girl should like the man to whom she is engaged, and had no confidence in him. Whenever she saw or thought of him, she felt a secret horror. That's... Usually your gut instincts can be, right. Once he said to her, "Thou art my betrothed, and yet thou hast never once paid me a visit." The maiden replied, "I know not where thy house is." Then said the bridegroom, "My house is out there in the dark forest." "That sounds suspicious." She tried to excuse herself, and said she could not find the way there. The bridegroom said, "Next Sunday thou must come out there to me. I have already invited guests, and I will strew ashes in order that thou mayest find the..." You have to burn a lot. I wouldn't have that many ashes to have a... Especially, won't the wind just blow it away? Stop criticizing stories that are make-believe. This is like saying, "Oh, why can Luffy stretch his arms so much after eating the gum-gum fruit?" Stop questioning why Goku can shoot Kamehamehas and just enjoy the giant fucking explosion. Okay. When Sunday came and the maiden had to set out on her way, she became very uneasy. She herself knew exactly not why, and to mark her way she filled both her pockets full of peas and lentils. Ashes were strewn at the entrance of the forest, and these she followed, but at every step she threw a couple of peas on the ground. She walked almost the whole day, until she reached the middle of the forest, where it was the darkest. There stood a solitary house, which she did not like, for it looked dark and dismal. She went inside it, but no one was within, and the most absolute stillness reigned. Suddenly a voice cried, turn back, young maiden dear. 'Tis a murderer's house you enter here." The maiden looked up and saw the voice came from a bird, which was hanging in a cage on a wall, and again it cried, turn back, young maiden dear. 'Tis a murderer's house you enter here." Then the young maiden went on further from one room to another and walked through the whole house, but it was entirely empty, and not one human being was to be found. At last she came to the cellar, and there sat an extremely aged woman, whose head shook constantly. "Can you not tell me," said the maiden, "if my betrothed lives here?" Alas, poor child, replied the old woman, whither hast thou come? Thou art in a murderer's den. Thou thinkest thou art a bride soon to be married? But thou wilt keep thy wedding with death. Look, I have been forced to put on a great kettle on there with water in it, and when they have the power, they will cut thee to pieces without mercy. Will cook thee and eat thee. So we're dealing with fucking cannibalism here? For they are eaters of human flesh. If I do not have compassion on thee, and save thee, thou art lost. Thereupon the old woman led her behind a great hogshead, where she could not be seen. Be as still as a mouse, said she. Do not make a sound, or move, or all will be over with thee. At night, when the robbers are asleep, we will escape. I have long waited for an opportunity. Hardly was this done, then the godless crew came home. They dragged with them another young girl. They were drunk and paid no heed. Okay, we have the picture here of the maiden and the... She came to a cellar. There sat an extremely aged woman, whose head shook constantly. Okay, very good artwork in the book. Screams and lamentations. They gave her wine to drink, 3 glasses full. 1 glass of white wine, 1 glass of red wine, 1 glass of yellow. And with this, her heart burst in twain. She had a heart attack? That's one thing I was like, do we have like stories of the past in which like, you know, people are like, oh, we have no idea what happened. But in reality, if you had like the doctor's diagnosis as from the past, you're like, oh, that person had a stroke. That's a heart attack. That's cancer. It's kind of like I think it was Alexander the Great. They were saying that, you know, he didn't decompose at all for like the first 3 days of his death. And they're like, oh, it's a sign that he's of godly, divine origin. But looking back, you're like, he wasn't dead. He was in a paralytic state. So he was paralyzed, but he could still hear and everything. Which means the great conqueror was simply paralyzed, unable to speak or move, but could still hear and see everything, and then was buried alive until he eventually, you know, died. So he was starving and then died of lack of oxygen. Everyone's like, oh, look, he's not decaying. Yeah, he's not dead. Okay. But yeah, so does that mean she had a heart attack? Okay. Was wine just super... Granted, I'm not really an alcohol consumer. So, I mean, I've tried it. But I don't think alcohol will give you a heart attack. I don't think that's how that works. Right? I mean, you can't just give someone 3 glasses of wine. I mean, what, it had to be really strong wine, right? I mean, that's not how the human body works, right? You can't have a heart attack from drinking alcohol, can you? I don't think that's a thing. Thereupon they tore off her delicate raiment, laid her on the table, cut her beautiful body in pieces, and strewed salt thereon. The poor bride behind the cask trembled and shook. Yeah! For she saw right well what fate the robbers had destined for her. You know, I don't feel robbers is an appropriate term. Did we not have the word cannibals in the past? Fuck! Hopefully they at least had some good barbecue sauce. Yes, I gotta make some dark humor here and there. I'm an asshole, okay? Trying to be funny, but my only attempts to be funny is just very concerning. One of them noticed a gold ring on the little finger of the murdered girl. And as it would not come off at once, he took an axe and cut off the finger. But it sprang up in the air, away over the cask, and fell straight into the bride's bosom. Okay. The robber took a candle and wanted to look for it, but could not find it. Then another one said, Hast thou looked behind the great hogshead? But the old woman cried, Come and get something to eat, and leave off looking till the morning. The finger won't run away from you. Then the robber said, The old woman is right, and gave up the search. She sat down to eat. The old woman poured a sleeping draught in their wine. What actually would work as a sleeping draught in the past? Like, I assume some sort of herb. And the old woman... Okay. So they soon lay down in the cellar and slept and snored. When the bride heard that, she came out from behind the hogshead and had to step over this. Why don't you just kill them? I get it. That's still killing, but still, we just watched them eat people. You know, I'm just saying, they can't chase after you if they're dead. I keep losing my place in the story. For they lay in rows on the ground, and great was her terror lest she should waken one of them. But God helped her, and she got safely over. The old woman went up with her, opened the doors, and they hurried out of the murderer's den. And with all the speed in their power, the wind had blown away the strewn ashes, but the peas and lentils brown had grown up, and showed them the way in the moonlight. They walked the whole night until the morning. They arrived at the mill, and then the maiden told her father everything exactly as happened. When the day came, when the wedding was to be celebrated, the bridegroom appeared, and the miller had invited all his relations and friends, and they sat at the table. Each was bidden to relate something. The bride sat still and said nothing. Then said the bridegroom to the bride, Come, my darling, dost thou know nothing? Relate something to us like the rest. She replied, Then I will relate a dream. I was walking alone through a wood, and at last I came to a house, to which no living soul was. But on the wall there was a bird in a cage that cried, turn back, young maiden dear. 'Tis a murderer's house you enter here. Oh, we have a little picture here. They walked the whole night. It's a very interesting picture. And this it cried once more, my darling, only I dreamt this. Then I went through all the rooms, and they were all empty, and there was something so horrible about them. At last I went down to the cellar, and there sat a very old woman, whose head shook. I asked her, Does my bridegroom live in this house? She answers, Alas, poor child, thou hast got into a murderer's den. Thy bridegroom does live here, but he will hew these pieces, and kill thee, and then he will cook thee, and eat thee. Oh my god! I think I understand a fucking old vernacular. Like, here's the thing, there's lots of words in the past that meant other things. Like, hoary head. You know, you should respect the hoary head. Hoary. This word hoary means a head full of gray or very white hair. Basically means you should respect elderly people, and especially like if the person's like enfeebled in their old age, you should help them and be kind to them. Because, you know, I'll be honest, like if everything's so heavy, you should try to help somebody. I mean, after all, you would want somebody to help you when you get to old age. But at the same time, there's lots of times that there's words in the past, whether it be in the Bible or old vernacular, that mean other things. And like, here's a story. Like, take Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, I'm a Christian, but I feel there's nothing wrong with people being gay or bisexual. Now, that being said, there's lots of people out there that basically associate people that are gay or bi as basically being murderers or rapists and all that shit. And like, heck, I've heard arguments that gay, bi, or even trans people shouldn't be allowed right to vote, jobs, health care, also that they should be publicly executed. There's been lots of very concerning, and of course that was sometimes acted upon in the past, you know, in a time before I was born. Main point being is like there's the assumption that people that, if the person's not entirely straight, that they must be violent and murderers and rapists and such. And I'm like, your sexuality doesn't make you violent or a bad person, it just changes what you're attracted to. It's like, oh, you like this girl with red hair or you like this girl with blonde hair? You know, that doesn't... what? Right, I'm talking about the whole robber thing. What I'm saying is this. A lot of people point out, like, the main reason why it was probably not a good idea for people to be gay in the past was you didn't have antibiotics, you didn't have condoms, you didn't have lube. You know, there's poop in there, UTIs, diseases, you could get sick. Then there's also things like, you needed to be able to, it's tribal societies. You need to be able to repopulate, have plenty of people as cannon fodder for wars. And then you also need to, just have a large population so you can outgrow the other nations. There's also the idea that, if the government or the church can control who gets married and who's allowed to be married, well, then they can control people's lives. Usually, heck, whether it's a government of religious or completely non-religious orientation, any people in power are going to want more power. If they can have control over your lives, they want control over your lives. And it's a lot easier to control and manipulate people if you basically get to say who they can actually be married to, who they can have sex with. It's like, you like that beautiful woman, but you must pledge your loyalty to this king, or else you won't be legally allowed to get married. And you're like, that sounds outlandish, but that's actually stuff that happened in the past. Main point I'm trying to say with this is that the biggest reason in the past was, medical reasons for people in the past, like health reasons. You didn't really have modern medicine, so you're more likely to get sick, or get a disease or something, or a UTI or some horrible problem. But then there's also the issue of just, people were kind of having to repopulate to fight extinction. I mean, we didn't break 1 billion people until about the 18th century. Beyond that, everybody across the world was constantly at war with everyone. Hell, any nation that was smaller than the other nation usually got captured and used as slaves. Hell, why wasn't that part of the Ten Commandments? No slavery. Literally the Ten Commandments were written right after they left Egypt. Why wouldn't that be like rule number 1? Or at least number 2 after murder? I don't know. And of course I'm starting to, I need to go to bed so I can go to work, but that's just, fuck. And then, like I said, it's just a repopulation thing, be able to fight other nations, and of course, the biggest reason to have rules about, sex and all that was so that whatever government that was in charge of a nation can have more power. People in power want to have as much power as possible. Particularly, they want to be like control freaks and control every aspect of a person's life. They're like, oh, well, you owe us this much in taxes, and oh, you can't buy land here. And granted, it's good. You have to have some amount of government society for a society to function. But it's never good to have a government that's too large. But the main reason I bring this up is this. A lot of people say, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, it's proof that, God hates gay people. I'm like, no. If you read it, it literally says Sodom and Gomorrah was that they were murderers, rapists, that they were highwaymen, and that they would murder and rob and mistreat basically any sort of traveler they came across or anybody they could. A lot of times they would hide along, the trade routes and ambush people and rob and steal. But here's the thing. In this context, the robber bridegroom, that's not referencing to a murderer. That's especially, where was I? Where was the word? Where was it when they specifically said robber? But the main thing is this. Highwaymen would be somebody who was usually ambushing trade routes and murdering people and stealing from them. But given this situation, that they're just using the word robber instead of cannibal, especially during times they're describing it, no one's stealing anything. Technically, yes, you stole the person, you stole their possessions. The main point is, what's being described at that moment is you're eating the person. Which then makes you think, does the word robber in this context, like in some contexts in old stories, saying you want to know somebody could be context of wanting to have sex with them. In this context, does this mean robber could potentially mean cannibal? How often was cannibalism in every era and society in the past? This is a weird part of anthropology. Or entomology? No, entomology is bugs. Anthropology is humans, right? Study of people. Am I remembering that right? The main point being is this. They wanted to, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, they wanted to, have the angels. But here's the thing. People say, oh, that's because they were gay. Like, being gay doesn't make you violent. It's kind of like if you were to take a guy and just put him in a room with 20 naked Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. He's not going to hurt them. Yes, he's going to be having an erection and trying to cover that and walking around blushing, but he's not going to try to hurt anybody. Drink some more water. I really need that brisk iced tea. I'm just saying, if you're attracted to somebody, it doesn't mean you're going to hurt them. It's like, oh, there's all these beautiful women with giant tits. Looks great. I'll try to talk to them and make a joke about Halo. Maybe they'll actually be interested in me. If not, whatever. I'll just walk over here and feel embarrassed. The end. Same way, being gay, like, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to attack and hurt people. It doesn't mean you're violent. Like I said, the whole point of Sodom and Gomorrah is that they were murderers and rapists and thieves, and they were violent. Had nothing to do with that. But the fact of the matter that you're phrasing robber in this way makes me wonder, were the people in Sodom and Gomorrah cannibals? Did they eat human flesh? I mean, if you're already dealing with a city that's well known for stealing, attacking, murdering, and raping, it's probably not that far-fetched to assume they're cannibals too, right? The main point is this. When was the word cannibal really start? Then again, it's always interesting, like in the Bible, you look into things like how was certain phrasings of the Bible different back when it was the original Hebrew version. And you realize that there were some things that are like, it's not necessarily that these things are commanded from God, it's that you're retelling history. So while there are some times where God is speaking to people, there's other times where it's literally just, humans trying to find some way to organize their society that works for them. In many of those situations, it wasn't that God commanded them to organize a situation a certain way. It was more so you're reading what decisions did human beings come to that they thought was the most efficient way to run their society. Because a lot of times, given the wording of some of the phrases, some things were mentioned like, oh, God said this, and other times it's, that's completely left out, and you're having the parts where God actually isn't speaking to people, and the people are making decisions on their own, but they're at least recording it, what it actually did. Though I still feel like there's plenty of stuff that's left out, and it's always interesting looking at like the difference between the, King James version of the Bible and say the old Catholic versions of the Bible that have books that were left out. And of course, there's also the apocryphal books that aren't really considered canon by most people. And also look at similarities between, what you read in the Bible as opposed to things that are in other religions. And you see how a lot of stories parallel. But then again, if you have something that happens that's, a major event, it's going to, word is going to spread. Main point being is this. Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because people were murderers and rapists. And because they were thieves and highwaymen who would rob and murder people. But given this context, really I have no way of knowing this, but it brings up the assumption, does the word robber mean cannibal in old languages? Like, obviously, a lot of times robber means robber, like thief. But I mean, how often does slang change nowadays? Like, oh yeah, talk about stuff that's either based or cringe. You went back 2 decades, like 20 years ago. Bunch of internet. Oh my god, you guys wonder where my mind went? I was thinking, what if you went back to the 90s and went up to people on the street and said, ooh woo, raffle, oh whoa, ara ara. They'd probably lock you in a mental asylum. Then again, to be fair, if I went to a Walmart and went up to like just random people and went, ooh woo, oh whoa, ara ara, nyan, nyan nyan. They made various cat sounds and started meowing and doing various internet like. I'm pretty sure they would also still throw me in a mental asylum even in 2023. They're like, what the fuck's wrong with this person? He said ooh woo. And oh oh. Oh my god. Why do I feel tempted to go to a Starbucks and like, sir, what's the name for your order? Ooh woo. Ara ara. Maybe I can actually try to make that sound nice. Ara ara. Ara ara. Ara ara. Ara ara. I don't know. I can't do shit. Everyone's like, what the fuck are we talking about? I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, this is why I should just... Alice, I'm going to finish the story. And in future stories, I'm going to try really hard to not say anything. To just read the words in the story. This should have taken like 10 minutes. It's supposed to be a short video. And instead, like we're talking about anything and everything. I'm just saying, does that mean in old vernacular that sometimes when the word robber is used, are we talking about cannibals? Because I mean, we're talking about the robber bridegroom. So, robber that he's robbing, like he's stealing his bride unfairly? Are we talking about robber in the fact that he's stealing things? Or that he's robbers inferring murder? Or in this situation, is robber inferring cannibalism? But main point is this. Whether or not you're attracted to men or women or both, it does not make you a bad person. I mean, what is so wrong with just wanting a loving, caring relationship and wanting somebody you feel safe and loved? And somebody like, hey, let's watch some anime and drink some Pepsi and take a shower naked and then go walk to Dairy Queen. You know, preferably after we got dressed, of course, but we're going to Dairy Queen and get some ice cream. You know what's really awesome, guys? Have you guys seen the Godiva ice cream? I think I remember one point in the past I tried that. I don't think it exists anymore. But like, go to Google image search and search Godiva ice cream. Oh, I've tried it like once before. Back in like 2017 or something, or 2016, or one of those years. I think it was like 2016, or 2015, or 2017. I'm going to go with 2016. Probably early 2016. I'm going to go with that. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what year. I didn't write down what year I ate ice cream. Though to be fair, I'm constantly eating ice cream. But like this particular ice cream. I'm just saying, soft serve ice cream is delicious. I like ice cream. Everyone's like, what are we talking about now? We're talking about ice cream. I'm fat. I like ice cream. Okay, I really should continue. I don't know what we're talking about, guys. Also, don't come to my channel for any sort of life advice. I'm fucking insane. I am not somebody. Even if I wasn't insane, I'm a random person on the internet. I can't be trusted to give you advice. Even if I wasn't insane. I'm just some random guy on the fucking interwebs talking to his computer. Yeah. Also, I like anime. Everyone's like, we already know this. I'm like, yeah, but I like this saying, please suggest anime in the comments. Animes I suggest would be The Slayers of Lena and Verse, Bubblegum Crisis, Bubble Gum Crisis, Tokyo 2040. And let's see. I don't know, Akudama Drive, Boffery, I don't want to get hurt, so I maxed out my defense. Overlord, Reincarnated Slime, Ari Feretta, Outlaw Star, Trigun, Tenchi Muyo, which has got like 20 different remakes of it. But I would say the original Tenchi Muyo, as well as Tenchi Muyo Ryoki and Tenchi Muyo GXP. But I'd say mainly like Tenchi Muyo Ryoki and the original Tenchi Muyo. Because like I said, there's so many times they retold the story, but they kept the same characters, but they changed the origins and some aspects of the personality and aesthetics. And the way the world building is. Which is, it's pretty awesome. It's like they kept doing like schizophrenic fan fictions of their own work. It's like, it definitely, like, there's times I'll think about what if scenarios of like Dragon Ball Z. Sometimes it's just a small change, sometimes it's like a drastic change or huge differences. So, and like I said, I like stories and I like to be able to just change little aspects of the story and just see how things change. Then again, I'm also the kind of person I'll be everywhere on the internet talking to everyone, regardless of like whatever sphere of the internet they're in. Like, oh, you're a person who plays Street Fighter. Oh, you're a person who likes anime. You're a person who does like what ifs. You're a person who does voice acting. Hi, I'd like to come here and just talk to you about random bullshit. Because I'm just like wandering around the internet talking to people. And everyone's like, who the fuck are you and how did you find us? And I'm like, I'm everywhere, bitch! Everyone's like, that's rude. I'm like, yeah, I know. Once I tried to do like my own impression of the Team 4 Stars Alucard. I don't think I'd be a very good voice actor. But it's like my singing. I'm not good at singing, but it's fun. Okay, finish the story. We're at like 2 hours. You have less than 3 minutes. If you finish this quickly, you can end the story for the 2-hour mark. Okay. We'll hew these pieces, and you cook thee and eat thee. My darling, I only dreamt this, but the old woman hid me behind a great hogshead, and scarcely was I hidden when the robbers came home dragging a maiden with them, to whom they gave 3 kinds of wine to drink, white, red, and yellow, with which her heart broke in twain. My darling, I only dreamt this. Thereupon they pulled off her pretty clothes and hewed her fair body in pieces on the table, and sprinkled them with salt. My darling, I only dreamt this. And one of the robbers saw there was a ring on her little finger, and as it was hard to draw off, he took an axe and cut it off. But the finger sprang up in the air, and sprang back behind the great hogshead, and fell into my bosom. And there in the finger with the ring, and there is the finger with the ring. And with those words she drew it forth and showed it to those presents. The robber, who had, during this story, become as pale as ashes, leapt up and wanted to escape. But the guests held him fast, and delivered him over to justice. Then he and his whole troop were executed for their infamous deeds. Okay, we're going to end the story since I have less than a minute and a half before we hit the 2-hour mark, because it shouldn't have taken 2 hours to read this short bit of a story, because, again, I'm going to try... At least I wasn't falling asleep this time. But fuck! It shouldn't have taken 2 hours to read this! Okay, next time, in part 3, Lunar D8 actually tries to focus! I hope everyone out there has a wonderful day. And I hope everyone has all the hugs and head pats you could ever want, and if you actually listen to this, thank you, I appreciate it, and hope everyone sleeps well. And I guess I'll see you all in part 3. Bye, guys.